I didn't grow up with any sort of religious background, so faith didn't really mean a whole lot to me. I had a lot of chaos and instability in my childhood, so I clung a lot to what I could control, which was being smart and successful in school. It made me feel safe and validated. The problem is when your worth is based on achievements and pleasing others, your self esteem can become pretty fragile. I wanted so badly to be good that I became incredibly hard on myself. I expected perfection from myself, which was honestly just driven by a longing to be loved and seen by others. That kind of pressure, rooted in something that's so impossible to achieve, ultimately left me feeling pretty hopeless on a regular basis. I occasionally went to church events and started to wonder about God, but at the time I don't think I was really ready. My methods of kind of performing and relying on myself kind of worked well enough, and I honestly didn't really realize that there was a different way to live. In college, alcohol entered my life and kind of began to crack that facade of perfectionism. It gave me a little bit of like a temporary relief from the constant anxiety and pressure to be enough. I was still a perfectionist, and I had tried to set a lot of rules for myself around drinking. And at the time, I didn't really realize how much effort I was putting into not over drinking. Ironically, in those moments when I was having a hard time and when some of the pain kind of surfaced, I had a friend that would point me towards God. And during those moments, I really wanted to believe, but I was still pretty stubborn, and my need for logic held me back a lot. My relationship with God really began my senior year of college when that same friend invited me to study the Bible. That was what really clicked with me. Studying made faith feel very approachable. As I read about Jesus, I saw someone who was everything I longed to be but couldn't. And it answered a lot of the questions that I had, but I couldn't quite get answered from my way of approaching the world. It gave me hope that I was capable of finding what I was looking for. The story of the woman at the well is what really resonated with me. There was a part in John that said, "Everyone who drinks from this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks from the water I give them will never thirst." And that was the water that I really wanted. After graduation, I moved to Charlotte and I started attending what was then Center City. I felt at home immediately and got a glimpses into that love and security I had been chasing. But I was only willing to give Jesus a part of my life. I wasn't willing to make him the centerpiece. I was young, successful, and unwilling to let go of the identity that I had built for myself. When we entered the era of COVID, like many, I got disconnected. Outwardly, things still looked fine, but inside I was restless. I had everything I thought I wanted, but still felt empty. I continued to try to build my life on the things that I thought were good, and really hoped that sense of belonging would come whenever I built a family of my own. When a relationship that was the closest I had gotten ended and had really built so much hope on, I was pretty devastated. Not just from the heartbreak, but from years of trying to be what I thought was right or good and feeling like I could never be enough. I threw myself into therapy, work, and anything to make that discomfort and heartbreak go away. And when those things didn't work, I turned to alcohol more and more. It was a cycle of just trying to make it through each and every day. What is pretty crazy is that from the outside looking in, things probably didn't seem all that bad. For some reason, I thought the most important thing was not letting anyone see how broken that I felt, because that would be when it all really fell apart. The more I masked my pain, the more exhausting it was. I had all kind of cracks in the facade that I was trying to maintain, and I was expending all my energy to keep it together. The more things crumbled, the more I leaned into alcohol as an escape. Never enough to cause any major problems or damage, not enough to impact my work so others could see anything that was going on, but just enough to keep going about it in a controlled manner to get as much relief as possible to keep going forward. I think the longer you're in this situation where you're hiding away from people, what's truly going on, there's a lot of shame, and it feels like the world's closing in on you and there's nothing you can do to fix it. It's so hard when the thing that you're battling isn't something anyone can see. How can you reach out for help when there's fear that the problem is you? I feared that no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't smart enough or strong enough to keep it together. The more the exterior perfection and positivity started to crack, the more I isolated myself so no one can see it. It was during a conversation that I realized that my drinking wasn't just a symptom of going through a hard time with my mental health. It was an addiction. Accepting that was incredibly hard. It didn't really align with this version of myself that I believed in. If I was going to hide what I was doing, it felt like I was reinforcing this idea that I should feel shame for needing help. I was scared, out of ideas, and losing hope. Eventually, I finally surrendered. I had a choice: surrender to the addiction or surrender to Jesus. And it was one of the hardest choices I've ever had to make. I remember sitting there, it was June 30th, and I was researching different treatment options I could go to because that's where I found my comfort in finding information and finding options. But when you're in that scenario, I don't think that there's an option that you can logic your way through. You can't predict the future. You can't know the right place to go. And I remember sitting there and thinking, Jesus, take the wheel. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do or where I'm supposed to go. And it was the first time I think I really prayed and I really meant it. And I got this overwhelming sense of peace that I can't really explain. And after that, I kind of just kept moving forward. I tried to not overthink it, which is one of the things I do best. And I just followed through. I made a few calls, and within, I think 24 hours, I was on a flight. One of the craziest things is that the cheapest flight that I could get was a first class seat. And I feel like that was really God looking out for me and saying, hey, I'm going to make a way for you. And you don't really need to figure out the best path because I will put you exactly on the path that you need to go. And I ended up in one of the best possible treatment places I could possibly go. It was a small program. I didn't know it at the time, but there was an extensive waiting list, and I had somehow gotten in calling like 24 hours before. And it was incredible. Treatment was life-changing. I was finally able to break open and let myself fully face where I was at. I found beauty in being authentic to where I was at, making connections with other people, and even facing the hard things. My recovery journey was incredibly hard in a lot of ways, but it was also the biggest blessing I could ask for. I learned that I didn't have to be perfect to be loved or accepted. I didn't have to perform. I just had to show up and trust that my worth was rooted in who I am as a child of God. And because of that, I can show up better every day to be a better person in every aspect of my life. I still face challenges, anxiety, perfectionism, hypervigilance. Those are all things that are really hard to shake. But I'm not a problem to solve anymore. I'm a person in progress, learning to live more authentically and trust a little bit easier. God breathed life into my life when I thought I was at a dead end. That's the miracle of resurrection. Not just one day, but every day that I choose to surrender again.